Hello everyone and welcome back to Russell's Movie Reviews, the show where I reviews stuff that's mostly pretty good and maybe one of the best movies of all time, or a film that absolutely sucks and should remain in the depths of hell. Now last week we obviously discussed Spider-Man 2, released in 2004, and now we're coming to the end of this Raimi trilogy and the one I've been dreading the most. Yes everyone, we're going to be talking about Spider-Man 3, released in 2007, and like I said, is the finale to the Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, released on May 4th of 2007. Now, to give my brief history on the film, this was the only film out of the Raimi trilogy that I never watched. I've heard so many bad things about this film that I just never bothered. And obviously, when I was, I realized I was going to have to watch this for the review, and I'll just say I thought it was going to be a lot worse than it was. By all means, it is still kind of a bad movie, but it's not as, like I said, it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, and we'll get to why as we go over this review. So, let's get started. So this was made with a budget of $258 million. Domestically, it made over $330 million, and worldwide, it made almost $900 million. So, yeah, this was pretty successful, and everyone was expecting to go into this being like, yay, a new Spider-Man movie, that's great. Little do we know, what would come out, it would be pretty divisive, let's just say. So yeah, let's get on to the plot. So Peter Parker played the final time by Tobey Maguire, and MJ played again for the final time by Kirsten Dunst, seemed to finally be on the right track in their complicated relationship. But trouble looms for the superhero and his lover. Peter's Spider-Man suit turns black and takes control of him, not only giving Peter enhanced power, but also bringing out the dark side of his personality. Peter must overcome the suit's influence as two supervillains, Sandman and Venom, rise up to destroy him and those he holds dear. So, yeah, it's one of those kind of movies. Look, I'll be honest. My main problem with this film is the fact that it's overcomplicated. What I mean by that? Well, we have the Peter and MJ story where, you know, they're going forward with their relationships, or with their relationship. They seem to be, really falling for each other. But as things go along in the story, their relationship slowly falls. Okay, I can follow this. Then, all of a sudden, we get introduced to Flint Marko, who, the first time we see him, he's running down an alleyway in a prison uniform. Okay, we soon figure out that he has a daughter who is dying of something. The film never explains it, although I think in the editor's cut they do explain it. But unfortunately for me, I don't own the producer's cut or the editor's cut, so I can't watch it. But in terms of the theatrical cut that we got, it is never explained what's wrong with Flint's daughter. It's just she is sick, and he is trying to find money to help his daughter, and after running away from the cops, he jumps over a fence that says caution on the top of it, and falls into a sand pit where he basically falls into what I can only describe as a DNA destabilizer, and I think that's actually what it's called. And yet it's with sand. Don't ask why. and he turns into the Sandman. Okay, sure, we can work with this. And then we cut back to Peter and MJ, where Peter's going to ask MJ to marry her, and all of a sudden fucking Harry shows up on this Super Glider Mark II and tries to kill Peter. He eventually suffers a head injury and develops amnesia, to where he remembers basically nothing up until his father's death. Okay, sure, I can go along with this. Yeah, it's stupid, but I can go along with it. Then we get introduced to Gwen Stacy, played by Bryce Dallas Howard. She really provides nothing to the story, so why the fuck is she in this movie? Oh yeah, to provide Peter with another love interest so that MJ can be all pissed at him. Oh yeah, and she's dating Eddie Brock, who becomes his sort of rival, like Harry wasn't already. Oh, but yeah, no, he has the amnesia, so he's basically taken out of the film for a good chunk of it. So now Eddie is gonna be Peter's rival in the film. Who's Eddie? Oh, he's a photographer for the Daily Bugle. Okay, but that's Peter's job. But now they're competing for the same job. Why? And to be honest, Eddie is just one of those, kind of like one of those douchebag high school students that you find in any teen rom-com. And as I mentioned, Peter gets the... Oh yeah, by the way, and like within 10 minutes of the film, the symbiote lands on Earth. When did the symbiote come from? Is never explained. How, did it come in a meteorite? That's never explained. What planet is it from? It's never explained. Why does it develop a fondness for Peter? It's never explained. Legit, someone forgot that, oh yeah, we need to add Venom in this movie, but we don't know how to add the symbiote into the story. How did we do that? Yeah, just make it a fucking meteorite. Boom. That's gonna explain everything, right? So yeah, while Peter and Eddie are trying to find a picture of Spider-Man, we get Harry slowly rebuilding his memory, because he can just fucking do that. He starts regaining his memory, and all of a sudden, fucking Green Goblin starts talking to him, saying, "Oh, you must finish the job. You must kill Peter by taking his heart." So he forces MJ to break up with Peter and date him. Like, okay. Why does Harry need MJ to break up with Peter? Why not just, get, Venom or Sandman to get him? But no, Harry has to be the one that dates MJ. While also, Venom takes MJ and fucking kidnaps her with inside of a taxi to the top of a fucking construction site, because he wants to call out Spider-Man so that he can fight him? Oh yeah, and fucking Sandman's there too, because at this point they fucking teamed up. And then right when Peter's about to fucking die, here comes Harry with a fucking Green Goblin bomb, and the two start working together like a fucking switch. It's basically flicking a switch, because Harry's butler decides, oh yeah, this information that I've known, ever since the events of the first one, I'm only now gonna tell you because plot convenience. So yeah, Harry and Peter start fighting. Harry takes on the Sandman. Peter goes against Venom. Harry eventually defeats Sandman and fights against Venom. Venom pulls Harry off of his board, which we know from earlier in the film is coded to his footprint, because he can easily call it back so that he can land on it and start flying again. And, of course, the thing has to have spikes on the front, so when Venom goes to use it as a spear to impale Peter, what does Harry do? He steps in front of the fucking thing and gets impaled himself. Bitch, you establish that he can call the board to him and, yank it from anywhere. So why the fuck didn't Harry do that? Instead of jumping in front of the thing and being like, oh, here, I gotta do my sacrifice moment. Oh, fuck, I was just stabbed. But it's all for the plot of the movie. Oh no, I've fallen. Ugh. And then Peter gets Eddie out of the symbiote because, high frequency noise disturbs the symbiote and causes it to basically have a panic attack. So Peter yanks Eddie out of the symbiote, gets a pumpkin bomb, throws it into the symbiote, and Eddie jumps into the symbiote as the bomb fucking explodes and kills him in the process. And need I mention fucking emo Peter before any of this shit in the final scene? So, just from that rant alone, you probably think I absolutely despise this movie. And while, yes, there are many parts about this movie that I fucking hate with a passion, I don't think this movie is terrible. Yes, I know, shocker, I don't think this movie's terrible. Like, I was going into this movie with the expectation of this film is Batman and Robin levels of terrible. So expect the shit and just accept it. But it turned out I actually had a pretty enjoyable time, besides all the bullshit moments, which unfortunately was like half of the fucking movie. But there are some great moments and great, action sequences throughout. Like this, the fight between Spidey and Sandman in the subway tunnels. That was a great sequence. Our first introduction to Sandman, like actual Sandman, when he's coming out of the sand and he picks up the little locket that his daughter gave him. It was actually pretty emotional, and I really liked it. And the CGI for that scene was absolutely amazing. And if I can say at least anything positive about the film itself, the CGI is actually really good. In fact, I think it's the best out of any of the Raimi films. I mean, yeah, there is some hokey CGI, especially with the human face capture. But, I mean, that kind of goes with the technology. No one could really get that down to a fucking T. But I feel like that it's the best in this film. In terms of all the special effects in general, it's the best, I think. It certainly looks the best out of all of them. It certainly looks the most modern. Whereas Spider-Man 1 and even Spider-Man 2 to an extent felt like early 2000s superhero movies. Whereas I can easily put on Spider-Man 3 and think that was like 2012, 2013. And yeah, this was a movie that was made in 2007. So I can at least give the movie credit for looking really modern and looking fantastic visually. And the CGI, like I said, is great as well. And I know that the jokes are probably going to come up anyway as soon as I say this, but Peter is actually really good in this movie. I think he's actually the best out of all of the Raimi films, and I know that's blasphemy. He said that Peter in the third one was great. Yes, I know. We'll get to emo Peter eventually. We'll get there. But regular Peter throughout like the first like hour of the film, he's actually really good. Like Tobey Maguire is at his best in this film. And Kirsten Dunst is actually not a screamy bitch anymore who's a bland, stereotypical love interest. She actually has character dynamic. Although some of the scenes that she's in with Peter, I'm just like, well, what the fuck is your problem? Like, one scene I can immediately think off the top of my head that I can point to that is when after we see her doing the stage performance at the beginning, which, by the way, say whatever about Kirsten Dunst's performances in any of the Raimi films, she has a fan-fucking-tastic singing voice, and that's actually her. It's not dubbing or another actress's voice. That's actually Kirsten Dunst live at that moment singing, and it's fucking great. So she definitely has a singing voice to her. But like I was saying, after we see her doing that, she was like, oh, the reviews came back and they said that I was awful. I'm like, well, one, those critics are fucking bullshit because your singing was fucking great. But then Peter's like, actually trying to talk to her, like saying like, yeah, like look at me, like I get recognized fucking anywhere, like in good or bad light as Spider-Man, so I know how it feels. And then she basically says, well, no, you fucking don't. You don't understand how my life is. So I'm like, bitch, he's trying to help you here. And yeah, what is your response to him? Oh yeah, be bitch to him. Like this is like the major part of the movie that I have to say is the weakest point, and it's the love interest, the love story. Because even though Tobey does great and Kirsten does great, and to a lesser extent Harry does good as well, it feels like it's forced to be like, oh, now at this point when they're about to get married, their relationship's on a rocky kind of footing. And it feels like that it was just forced, and it just did not gel well with the rest of the movie. And I think the problem is that there's way too many fucking characters in this movie. Because here's the thing, we've had, as I mentioned, Tobey is great, but yeah, we have Peter / Spidey, we have MJ, we have Harry, we have Flint Marko, we have, and we have Eddie Brock. So that's 5 main characters in this fucking movie. Peter, MJ, Harry, Flint, and Eddie. When realistically, 2 of those characters should not be fucking there at all. Eddie should not be at all, and the only reason why he's there is because the studio execs were just like, we want Venom in this movie, and Sam Raimi was forced to add Venom in, and the whole subplot with him feels forced. Which causes all the other plot lines to be forced too, and causes the whole fucking movie to fall apart on itself. And the whole Harry having amnesia thing, okay, yeah, that's a bit interesting. But then, legit, like half an hour later into the movie, he's like, oh, I got my memories back, and now I all of a sudden hate Peter, and I want to ruin his fucking life with MJ. So, at that point, it's like, well, what's even the fucking point of the amnesia part? If they were really gonna do it, they should have, like, had it maybe, like, spread out between, like have him be still, like, losing, like still have him lose his memory, and by the 4th one, he gets his memory back, and it does the superhero thing. And yet, this film just feels like, okay, we're at, like, we're half an hour before the movie's supposed to end. We need to rush. So we need Harry to get his memories back, him to force MJ to break up with Peter, and then Eddie's supposed to capture him, and then he's supposed to figure out that it wasn't Peter that killed his father, it was himself, so that Harry can have his old redemption thing and be like, yay, I'm a part of the bad guy, stab. And it just feels rushed. That's the biggest issue with this film, is that they tried to cram in so many characters that they just rushed it, and it does not feel coherent. It does not feel like a structured plot. It just feels like that they just slapped a whole bunch of shit in from the comics, and they were just like, here's your movie, and it doesn't fucking work. So, and like I said, the thing about this film for me is that if it was just like, if I was just ignoring everything and I wasn't being so angry about all the shit that was bad, it's just an average film for me. But honestly, I can't ignore all the bad shit that's in it because it's so plainly fucking obvious. Like, what's bad about this film is that it kind of just teeters it towards the bad side. And I'm like, the fact that we have to stick with Emo Peter for at least half an hour of the film during the second half of the movie is fucking atrocious. Like, the whole montage sequence that we have with Emo Peter after he gets Eddie fired from the Daily Bugle is fucking cringeworthy. And I know all the fucking memes that came out of that. I get that. But it still doesn't hide the fact that the scene is fucking cringy. Like, I legit felt sick watching that scene. And I felt like I was honestly gonna throw up because it was so bad and so cringy that, like, it surprised me that this wasn't a Spider-Man movie. Like, on it, like, I obviously knew that, like, that scene was in the movie. I've always known this. But then there was a point for the last few years where I was like, you know what? Maybe everyone's blowing out of proportions. Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe, yeah, it's funny when you look at it out of context, but in terms of the plot and the story, maybe it's not that bad. And then I watched the movie, and I'm like, holy shit, it's actually that bad. And it makes you realize that yeah, there are moments where people are wrong, but this is unfortunately one of those moments where people were right, and I just felt like dying. So, yeah, but luckily, I mean, yeah, granted, it feels like we have to stick with, like, Emo Peter for, like, half an hour in the second act, but luckily he gets pretty much thrown aside real quick after Peter's like, I am a normal person! And he obviously gets the symbiote on Eddie, and he turns to the fucking Venom. Why the fuck do we have to have Eddie as the fucking Venom? In terms of the main characters, Venom is the worst part about this film. And it honestly kind of sucks because Topher Grace is trying so fucking hard to do everything that he can with this performance, and it's not working out because it just feels like I said with I forgot who it was, kind of like with the manager in Elvis. It feels like that he was meant for like a 60s Batman show when he's actually in a big budget trying to take itself seriously Spider-Man movie. And the two just don't gel well at all. And it makes his scenes like bad. Like I so want to say his scenes are so bad it's good, but it's barely on that fucking line, really. Even though like Toby does great, Kirsten does great, and even James Franco does good as well. Even though they do great, the characters themselves are kind of hindered by the plot that they get thrown into, which makes me go back to saying that J. Jonah Jameson is the best part about this movie. And it kind of sucks that he barely gets to do anything in this movie. Like, legit, the only plot significant thing I can think of that he does is that he tasks both Peter and Eddie to get a picture of Spider-Man doing something bad, and then he fires Eddie after figuring out that the photo that he submitted of Spider-Man robbing the bank was a fake. Those are legit only the two scenes in Spider-Man 3 where J. Jonah Jameson actually felt important. Because I think he only appears, besides in those two scenes, during the emo Peter montage and at the final fight when he tells the kid, like, how much you want for the camera? Like $100. So he gives her the $100. He opens up the camera, or he tries to take a picture of it. He doesn't get anything. He opens it up. There's no fucking film. And I'm like, that was just stupid. Like, do we really need to cut away from the action to see that? So, yeah. J. Jonah Jameson, even though he's the best part about this movie, he was wasted. And, of course, I can't go on and talk about a Sam Raimi movie without mentioning Bruce Campbell in his cameo role as the Maitre D. And, by far, best Bruce Campbell cameo in any of the Spider-Man movies. By far. Don't add me. But, yeah. I don't know. I don't know what else to talk about with this film, honestly, because it's like kind of like how I did it with Spider-Man 2. I want to make the video entertaining, but if I continue to talk about the film, it just becomes me saying, "Oh, this part's shit. This part's shit. This part is okay. This part is actually really good. Then this part shit. This part shit." And, like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to sound like a broken record saying this, but overall, I just feel like this film is a massive, like, disappointment for anyone who was a fan of the first two Raimi Spider-Man movies. But that being said, it's honestly not a bad movie. Yeah, I know I said that maybe once or twice throughout the review, but yeah, honestly, it's not that bad. Even though, yes, all the emo Peter shit is terrible. All of Eddie Brock stuff is forcefully pushed into the plot for no discernible reason. Yes, Sandman stuff gets pushed to the side halfway through the movie, and he feels like a side villain where he should have been the main villain. But then they say, oh yeah, no, Venom. Venom is the main villain. And who? This guy? The Sandman guy? Fuck him. Bye-bye. And yeah, Sandman is, as far as I know, the only Spider-Man villain to actually survive their film in the Raimi trilogy, because Green Goblin gets impaled by his own glider. Doc Ock gets... Oh, well, no, technically, the burglar in the first one, he tripped on a pipe by himself, which caused him to kill himself. Green Goblin got impaled by his glider. Doc Ock sunk with the reactor core, sacrificing himself. And then we had both Eddie and Harry, who basically sacrificed themselves as well. So, yeah, all 5 Raimi Spider-Man villain deaths, basically, they died by their own means. That shows lazy writing, motherfuckers. And yeah, like I said, what they do with Sandman, you live. We'll see you in the next one. Oh yeah, there was no Spider-Man 4. So might as well mention it now. Well, no, I'll save that for next week's review, because I feel like that'll be more appropriate for that one. But yes, there's more to talk about. That was this fucking movie. Yeah. If I had to mention any favorite scenes from this film, I can't. I legit I'm trying to think of a scene that I thought was at least memorable. I legit can't fucking think of one. Like legit the best. I mean, I guess any the J. Jonah Jameson scenes that were important. Like, okay, no, there's one moment with J. Jonah Jameson that I thought was actually flat out fucking hilarious, and that was when the first scene that we get introduced him to, when he's talking to Hoffman, Ted Raimi's character, and he has this kind of like I would just call it an answering machine, even though that's not really what it is. But basically, it's to communicate between him and his secretary or the whatever her name is. Did I write? I didn't even write his name down or her name down. Um, but like the ring is so loud that it shakes like his old office and like bumps his desk up. And so every single time she rings it in, he's like, "Fuck!" And then like it keeps on going on, and he's like because he's trying to pick up pills, and he goes to grab the first one, it jolts, and she's like, "Nope," and then he moves on to the next one, and she's like, "No," and then he's like, she's like, "Mm-hmm," and then he opens up the cap, like legit as he lifts the cap off the pill case, she fucking rings it again, and then all the pills go everywhere. And it's just like, okay, that was actually kind of funny. The rest of the film is either mediocre or shit. Fun facts. Um, they're really not that special. Basically just Sam Raimi after the completion of this film, he was just very unhappy with the results of this film and was like, well, hope to improve it with the fourth one. But again, that shit didn't happen. And then Sony was like, "Hey guys, want more Spider-Man? Yeah, our director kind of left, so we're rebooting Spider-Man." Oh, no one cares? Well, fuck it, we're still gonna make it. And yeah, that's how we led up with the Amazing Spider-Man stuff, which will start next week. And then as I mentioned earlier with the introduction with of the Sandman, when he's like trying to come out of the sand and he's like falling apart, and he's actually starting like to gain his shape, and he realizes like what the fuck he's become, and he picks up the locket and he finally starts walking out. That whole scene took the production team 6 months to make. 6 months to make a 3.5 minute sequence of just CGI. Now can you kind of see why this film's budget was almost $260 million? Because you look at it, and then you look at the movie, and you're like, Mr. Raimi, I think I know where most of your budget went. It went on this fucking scene. You didn't even get to pay any of the fucking actors because their salaries went towards this shit. Which, granted, looks amazing for 2007 quality. That doesn't make up for the entire movie, though. And the music was done by Christopher Young this time. It was not Danny Elfman because, well, I haven't been able to find the exact truth about it, but basically there was a bit of controversy between him and I think either Sam Raimi or the producers of how his music turned out. And so he did not return for this film, and again, it was Christopher Young replaced him. And I will say this right now. The score for Spider-Man 3 is the best out of any of the Raimi Spider-Man films. It just sucks that we haven't, at this point, gotten an official release of the soundtrack for Spider-Man 3. And we only just got like an actual soundtrack release for the original, like the 2002 one. So God knows when they're going to do a fucking soundtrack release for the third one. Probably for its 20th anniversary, I don't fucking know. Spider-Man 3 is about to turn 20 years old in 4 years. Fucking Christ. Where has the time gone, bro? So, what are my final thoughts on Spider-Man 3? It's average. There are some good moments in it. There are some bad moments in it. But overall, the movie is not that good. It's plain free average. If you really, really think about it. It's just, it seems like it's a bad movie because of all the bullshit scenes that are in it. Like all the emo Peter shit. All of Eddie Brock's stuff being forcefully put in. All of Harry's amnesia that gets basically thrown away within the third act. It's, if I had to go back and rewatch it, I would. But it's not something I would actually like turn on for myself. I would easily watch Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man 1 over watching Spider-Man 3. But it's not an experience that I thought was a painful experience. Oh, I mean, it was painful for some moments, but it wasn't the overall experience. Like I said, most of the cast is great in this film. Tobey Maguire as Peter / Spider-Man, he's great. Probably his best performance as Peter. Kirsten Dunst, again, probably her best performance as MJ. Topher Grace, yeah, I don't really like his character, but he's trying so hard to make this role his own. Thomas Hayden Church as Flint Marko, he's alright. It's just that they don't use him as much as they should have. James Franco, that's pretty good. Bryce Dallas Howard, she's basically just MJ from Spider-Man 1 all over again. J.K. Simmons, best part about this movie as J. Jonah Jameson. And Bruce Campbell turning in another fantastic cameo. But I can't say that its flaws are just kind of, I can just ignore them. Its flaws are painfully fucking obvious and I can't overlook them. But it's not a movie that it's not Batman and Robin levels of bad. It's certainly not that. But it is by far the weakest out of all of the Spider-Man movies I've reviewed so far. Although I feel like that my opinion, or that statement, will change over the next few weeks. But we'll see about that. So, I'm going to give Spider-Man 3 a C-. It is just barely there of being a okay movie. There are some good moments. There's way more bad moments. But overall, it's an average viewing experience. So, that was my review of Spider-Man 3. Yeah. I know this was probably one that you guys were anticipating me to do. And, needless to say, I'm kind of glad that I did finally watch Spider-Man 3 after all this time, because it was one of those movies where I was like, do I really need to watch that at some point? But now that I finally have, I could say, okay, I watched Spider-Man 3, and it wasn't that bad. But if you guys enjoyed this sort of content, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you can notify me of future videos coming out. We are trying to hit 200 subscribers, maybe by the beginning of summer, but I don't know if we're going to be able to make it by then. So I'm just going to say, let's try and hit 200 by the end of the year. I feel like that's at least plausible. But if we hit it by the beginning of summer, that's great. But let's just try and get 200 by the end of the year, please. That would mean the world to me if that happens. There will be a kind of a new version of the outro where I'm gonna have my usual Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. But I also have my Letterboxd page and my Twitch page on there as well, so you can see what all those usernames are, and those links will be down in the description below as well. If you want to check those out. There you can also join my Discord server where we talk about movies, video games, and just random shit in general. And yeah, so stay tuned for next week, guys, for my review on The Amazing Spider-Man from 2012. Live long and prosper, out.